Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so this episode, Stone Free, is essentially the episode that officially introduces Jolyne's stand, but also kind of is her first encounter with a stand user. And this is essentially her figuring out how to fight stands and figuring out, things like effective range and and abilities and those kinds of things. That's essentially what this episode is. So, and of course, that's essentially starts with her meeting her new cellmate, who winds up becoming a stand user. So, yeah, that's essentially the premise, and I've also been trying to record this for the past several weeks, so I'm finally being able to do it. Yay! But in any case, the episode starts off with Jolyne and several of the other new inmates being presented to being given a presentation by the Green Dolphin Street Prison's warden, Loco Barocco. And Loco Barocco is established to be a little bit eccentric. Essentially, the way he gets up to give his presentation on how the prison works, but what we find out is that he has a stuffed alligator puppet named Charlotte that he names Charlotte, who he will talk with and through. So of course there's a lot of him just talking to the puppet, talking through the puppet, yelling at people with the puppet. Essentially, his entire character is established to be puppets. But of course, Loco Barocco, through his alligator puppet, while also talking a little bit about himself, does go on to explain how the rules of Green Dolphin Street Prison work, and explains that it is essentially just one giant block of free time. Like as he goes on to explain it. The Green Dolphin Street Prison was modeled after the idea of American freedom. So which essentially means that anybody who wants to go anywhere can go anywhere. They are allowed to exercise wherever they want, go out in the yard. They could go wherever they want. He also points out that there are also some restrictions. Obviously, no sharp metal objects. They're not allowed to take off the little wristband that has their ID on it and their prison number. And also explains that, and of course, Jolyne is the one who bringing this up, and of course, as I mentioned, Loco Barocco's quote-unquote puppet snaps at her, but he calms the puppet down and explains to Jolyne that she's not allowed to have earrings in there as well, but ultimately there aren't very many rules, and he ultimately explains if she has any questions about further rules, she's free to talk to any of the guards about new information and those kinds of things. But in any case, after that weird bizarre presentation, fitting for the series, but after receiving such a bizarre presentation from the warden, Jolyne is escorted to her cell, where of course the prison guard tells her that it will wind up being her home away from home for the duration of her stay in Green Dolphin Street Prison. Also explain, and then also proceeds to give a bit more of an explanation about how breakfast works. Explains that free time is over for the day and that she'll have to turn in for bed, but also proceeds to explain that early in the morning the cell will open up, and when it becomes morning, they will be able to go out and get breakfast. But also points out it's not a hard start time, and that they are allowed to sleep in if they feel like they need it. But of course, he then proceeds to bring her into the cell. At which point, we're introduced to Jolyne's cellmate, Gwess, and Gwess was teased at the end of last episode. Something I didn't really pick up on until after watching the episode. But she is of course teased in the previous episode, and is established to be the one who has Jolyne's pendant, which of course is kind of going to be a bit of a conflict. But of course, Gwess is initially starts off as very kind and welcoming. She of course welcomes Jolyne and hopes that they can be friends. But we find out that Gwess has put all of her stuff on the top bunk, and so Jolyne, thinking her stuff is that the top bunk is Gwess's, decides to put her stuff on the bottom bunk, which immediately causes Gwess to snap at her and tells her that she's not allowed to sit on the bottom bunk because the bottom bunk is hers, which of course causes Jolyne to become a little confused because she doesn't know why Gwess is suddenly flying off the handle at her, and I don't know if this is me reading too much into it, but I think Gwess is bipolar because she'll be warm and bubbly one minute and an absolute mess of a human being the next, and she will just lash out at you randomly. But of course, right as Jolyne is kind of apologizing to Gwess, pointing out that she thought that the top bunk was occupied and that's why she was going to the bottom bunk. She notices that Gwess has a parrot in her pocket, which of course Gwess immediately tries to hide, much to Jolyne's confusion. But ultimately, after pointing out that after getting an earful from Gwess, Jolyne does decide to take Gwess up on her offer and decides to sit on well, not necessarily offer, but decides to appease her by sleeping on the top bunk. But as she gets ready as they kind of sort out everything and get ready to go to bed, Jolyne notices that Gwess's bird has climbed out of her pocket, and much to Jolyne's horror and confusion, the bird takes off its own head to reveal two human arms that pull a saltine cracker inside the bird and eat it, which of course causes Jolyne to become very confused about what she just saw, but ultimately doesn't really process it right away and decides to climb up onto the top bunk, where she doesn't really sleep. She kind of just thinks about a lot of things that are going on. But of course, after Jolyne is trying to sort out the confusion with all their beds and everything else, she does notice amongst Gwess's stuff is her pendant, which of course she is very confused about, thinking she lost it, and immediately instead Gwess let her see it. But of course Gwess immediately tells her that no, she's not allowed to see it, and once again snaps at her, and of course deciding it's not really further arguing about, Jolyne proceeds to decides to get ready for go to bed and decides not to get on Gwess's bad side anymore, at which point she starts putting all of her stuff on the top bunk, and in the process discovers that Gwess's bird has crawled out of her pocket, and very much confusing Jolyne, it then proceeds to take off its own head to reveal two human arms, which then pull a saltine cracker from Gwess's desk inside the bird and eats the cracker, which of course confuses her, but ultimately decides to try and wrap her head around whatever's going on. She proceeds to lay down on the bed on the top bunk while also wondering what's going on, and also does think a bit about her father and everything else, and her mom is also just in general very confused as to how her life got so messed up that she's now in prison. But as it's kind of starting to dawn on morning and Jolyne is finally going to sleep, Gwess suddenly climbs up onto the top bunk and stares ominously at Jolyne for several seconds, which causes her to jolt awake when she realizes somebody's watching her. And of course, very confused as to what, panicked about the fact that Gwess is just staring at her creepily. Gwess eventually reveals that she came up onto the top bunk to apologize, pointing out that she got a little out of line and would like to be friends with Jolyne. But of course, Jolyne points out that there's nothing to apologize about or forgive, pointing out that it was her fault for not understanding that Gwess had occupied the bottom bunk and not the top bunk. But ultimately, Gwess is happy to learn that Jolyne forgives her, and then also points out that because it's morning, they now need to go to breakfast. So she immediately runs out of her cell to go get some food. Meanwhile, Jolyne tries to follow after her, but discovers the floor is wet and now her pants are soaked. So she needs to clean up the water and also maybe wring out her pants so that she can wear them. And of course, that takes a bit. And by the time she actually gets to the cafeteria, she discovers all of the food is gone. And of course, Jolyne is kind of upset that she didn't get any food, and also proceeds to ask the prison chef, the prison lunch lady, how she could possibly be sold out of food. And of course, the lunch lady just explains that prisoners are allowed to sleep in, which, as she also points out, means that they can also skip out on meals if they sleep in too long. But and of course, Jolyne is a little annoyed and confused But ultimately, Gwess arrives at the trash receptacle to throw out all of her food. In the process, Jolyne discovers that she had helped herself to a second banana and a second bottle of bottle of milk, which of course she points out is, unfair because she didn't get any. But of course, we find out that Gwess points out that she doesn't really know what Jolyne is talking about. But also apologizes for the water that spilled everywhere, which Jolyne points out was kind of the reason why she was late and cleaned it up. And of course, Gwess just points out that Jolyne's a good person before wandering off. But as Jolyne finds out, she goes to go check the trash, and much to her confusion, discovers that in order to hide the fact that the pendant did in fact belong to Jolyne. Because Gwess, I forget to mention this, but Gwess mentions that she couldn't find a picture or any sort of stone inside of it, which is obviously a lie. But she quickly discovers that the picture of her mom and dad are in the trash, which proves that Gwess lied about that. But of course, meanwhile, Gwess is when she thinks she's out of earshot of everybody, then proceeds to start talking to nobody in particular to come out and say that she loves her, pointing out that she's always so sweet when she hears them say "I love you." And of course, with that right on cue, her parrot climbs out and starts talking to her and tries to say good morning. But of course, she scolds the parrot, pointing out that and she wants it to say "I love you," and of course it does, which causes her to very affectionately coddle it. But then she starts doing tricks. And it's at this point it's sort of apparent that this parrot, like it was apparent earlier, but it's becoming more increasingly apparent that this parrot is not a normal parrot, because the parrot immediately tries to climb onto Gwess's finger and utters a whoa, because it stumbles for a bit, which of course causes Gwess to immediately realize that the bird has made a very unbird-like noise, and wonders what kind of bird goes whoa. At which point the bird proceeds to try and cover for its mistake by exclaiming "I love you" over and over, which of course Gwess immediately picks up on, and pointing out that she doesn't tolerate mistakes, insists that they're through. But of course, meanwhile, Jolyne has heard all of this and immediately uses her stand to kind of retrieve the bird without Gwess realizing, using the various strings she can summon to just pull it to safety. But as she's examining the bird, she quickly discovers human remains inside, and quickly realizes that Gwess has already killed whatever this bird is supposed to be, which of course causes Jolyne to somewhat panic. But she immediately realizes that Gwess is now coming to look for it. And on the upper level where Jolyne is hiding, so Jolyne immediately pulls the bird away with her stand, and immediately hides behind the wall where she doesn't think Gwess can see her. And of course, when Gwess seemingly leaves, Jolyne lets out a sigh of relief, but then quickly discovers that she's a lot smaller than she's supposed to be. She's starting to think over, like, well, why are there small human remains inside that bird? But quickly discovers that she is in fact as small as the bird was, which of course causes her to become very confused. At which point, Gwess immediately corners her, revealing that she never actually went away, and also knows that Jolyne was that points out that though she doesn't know how she did it, she knows Jolyne was the one who stole the bird. So, and at which point she immediately scoops Jolyne up and takes them back to their cell. At which point she flings Jolyne onto the table and immediately is very sing-songy and is, like very sing-songy and weirdly affectionate. But of course it's at this point where she also reveals that she had since scooped up the bird and throws it away, which of course causes Jolyne to wonder what the bird actually was. And Gwess explains that the bird is actually an old prison guard. She explains that the warrant he was somebody who was going to be fired, and as far as the warden knows, he was left the facility, and nobody knows he's not actually there anymore. So, but of course, she then proceeds to confront Jolyne, and makes her put on a discarded rat pelt, which of course Jolyne is reluctant to do. But Gwess then proceeds to go on to explain that the reason she's deciding to go with a mouse is because the bird unfortunately did not work because of a lack of, arms, whereas mice have arms. And she goes on to explain that actually Jolyne could let out a squeak or whatever and be very affectionate and cute little mouse friend. But of course Jolyne is a little reluctant to do it, but realizing she doesn't really have much of a choice, she puts the quote unquote suit on. At which point Gwess proceeds to go on a series of training exercises to prove if Jolyne can actually be trained like a mouse, which is very messed up. But and of course, as I said, Gwess is not exactly firing on all cylinders. Like there's a good reason she's in prison. She's not mentally all there. She's a little crazy. But of course Jolyne eventually tries to figure out what exactly it is that Gwess wants her to do, and in the process, Gwess kind of explains that she's decided to name Jolyne, and to kind of give her this pet-like name like she gave the bird, but explains that words have power, and of course proceeds to explain that because of that, she's decided to name her ability Goo Goo Dolls. Which of course she doesn't fully understand what the ability is. She doesn't realize what stands are either, because this is all new to her. But she literally awakened her stands, not like an episode ago. She's new to just as new to us as Jolyne is. But of course Jolyne also demonstrates her trickery, but her cunning because she at one point Gwess tries to prop a book up on top of her. And in order to keep the book from crushing her, she uses a series of objects nearby that she seemingly retrieves with her stand, which of course causes Gwess to become upset with her treachery when she realizes that Jolyne isn't actually holding the book up by herself. But ultimately, the show once again demonstrates a very flippant attitude, because she is immediately like, "We're through. Just kidding. You pass." At which point, now that Jolyne has quote unquote passed her tests, she then proceeds to bring Jolyne to the gunpoint, which is essentially just a giant room where all of the weapons in the prison are stored, for safety. And proceeds to go on to explain to Jolyne that she wants to escape. She explains that she wants Jolyne to go and check out the gunpoint using her mouse costume and hood, and pointing out that she wants to work together with Jolyne because, as we find out, Goo Goo Dolls cannot affect Gwess for some reason. It does not enable her to shrink herself, only other people. But of course Jolyne is not entirely sure how to do this, and also gets scolded by Gwess for not talking like a mouse. But of course, after pointing out that she points out to wonder how she would know what to do, and Gwess explains that she just needs to find the room where all of the prison locks and all the other things are remotely controlled, and find the control room within the gunpoint, and that should be sufficient enough for them to get out. And of course, Jolyne, having no other choice, puts her hood on, and still kind of very small and pretending to be a mouse, proceeds to go through the gunpoint's double locked doors, like it's a big hallway with two locked doors on the end of it, and there's bars and covered wire and mesh and all that, so that no prisoners can get in. But as Jolyne is doing that, trying to stay out of the range of the cameras that are watching her, one of the prison guards immediately comes out from the gunpoint and is out and notes that Gwess is loitering around the entrance to the gunpoint and demands to know what she's doing, and she of course just points out that she's just loitering and that she'll be moving along. At which point, the prison guard points out that that's fine. Just don't go anywhere near the gunpoint ever again. Which, and of course, this winds up becoming a problem, by the way. But Jolyne, meanwhile, has successfully snuck into the gunpoint with none of the guards being able to notice her, and climbs under one of the desks. And looking around, she's trying to figure out which room the control room is, when suddenly she notes that she's getting bigger, which of course concerns her greatly. And of course she doesn't fully understand why she's getting bigger at first, but then realizes that because the guard turned Gwess away, she's likely out of Gwess's range and is now slowly getting bigger because of that. But This, of course, causes Jolyne to also panic for another reason, because the rat costume, the quote-unquote rat costume that she's wearing, is also ripping apart as she gets bigger, and realizing the guards can hear it, she needs to figure out a plan of escape before she gets too big. So what she does is she uses her stand to pull some coffee on one of the guy's legs so that she can sneak off before they find her, and she immediately discards her rat costume and immediately tries to climb through the gunpoint entrance again, pointing out that she needs to get back to Gwess before she gets too big. Now realizing that she's out of Gwess's range and needs to get back in Gwess's range to stay small. But of course, we do find out that unfortunately the Gwess's stand has other plans. We quickly find out that that Goo Goo Dolls was inside the rat with Jolyne and is currently giving chase. And Jolyne realizes what's happening with Goo Goo Dolls, realizes that thinks she's trying to bail because Gwess doesn't understand what stand range is, and is now trying to chase after her because it thinks she's trying to bail and trying to escape their mission. But of course Jolyne is not. She's trying to regroup so that she can get back, and quickly realizes that the stand may very well kill her if she's not careful. So she tries to restrain it with her strings, and the process discovers that if a stand is injured, she can injure herself because Goo Goo Dolls breaks through her string, which causes Jolyne to bleed. Interestingly enough, Jolyne is able to use her blood to slip through the bars so that to kind of further escape, but it also pulls herself up to one of the support beams in the ceiling so that she doesn't wind up getting away from Goo Goo Dolls, but in the process she winds up growing a little bit bigger and winds up getting stuck in the ceiling. So unfortunately, she is unable to escape from where she climbed up to, and Goo Goo Dolls is trying to close in on her and is trying to attack and slash her. But right as Jolyne is about to get attacked by Goo Goo Dolls suddenly gets smacked into a wall, inexplicably, with no explanation given at first. And of course, Jolyne is a little confused as to what happened, and so is Goo Goo Dolls. But ultimately, the stand tries to continue its assault on Jolyne, only for a fist to very visibly punch it back into the hole it just made. And of course, quickly discovers that Jolyne's stand is able to manifest a physical form. It is able to ravel itself up from Jolyne's string, and of course we do finally see Jolyne's stand, or at least it's the physical manifestation of it. But of course, now realizing that she can figuring out that she has since figured out how to fight back, Jolyne realizes that Goo Goo Dolls isn't much of a threat to her anymore because she can defend herself, and then proceeds to tell Goo Goo Dolls to get Gwess because she's now stuck. And obviously doesn't understand that her range is limited. But of course, Gwess is revealed to not actually need to be retrieved because again, stand damage is reflected to the user, and Gwess has since figured out that she's getting her ass kicked inexplicably. So she's starting to realize that Jolyne must have had something to do with it. But and of course, Gwess shows up, obviously very battered and bruised. But then proceeds to tell Jolyne that she doesn't know what Jolyne has done, but wishes she would leave, but insists that she should leave her Goo Goo Dolls alone because she doesn't want to get injured any further. And of course, Jolyne then tells Gwess to shrink her down, pointing out that she's stuck, but only just enough to to not go through the hole to not be stuck in the ceiling anymore. And of course, Gwess obliges, but also admits that and she kind of misses that Jolyne won't squeak for her anymore and wishes that she would squeak again. And also tells Jolyne that she can have the bottom bunk if she wants, and of course also offers to show Jolyne her pendant, which of course Jolyne is happy about now that she's free from the ceiling. But Gwess accidentally drops it, and it rolls in front of the gunpoint. So Jolyne goes to go get it. At which point, Gwess, once again, very flippant character, immediately shrinks her down and knocks her into the gunpoint before hollering for a guard to let somebody know that a prisoner has gotten into the gunpoint. Which, of course, Jolyne, realizing now that she's in very mortal danger, quickly discovers that the guards are now on high alert because she's somehow slipped into the gunpoint. Not really sure how she managed to do that, and is currently getting the shotgun. To shoot Jolyne with. And with with of course Gwess pointing out, and of course Jolyne tries to punch a hole in the gate, but on a secondary gate immediately falls down, and she's only barely able to punch a hole in it. But of course Gwess proceeds to point out that it's no use, and that the guard will shoot her as she's speaking, and that's what she gets for being a traitorous person. But ultimately, Jolyne, despite being locked inside the gunpoint, is able to land a flurry of hits on Gwess, and proceeds to use her stand to pull her closer, and then proceeds to scold Gwess, pointing out that she's very much demonstrating a bit of her father while she does this, but proceeds to explain that she's not the one giving that Gwess isn't the one giving orders anymore, and does point out that if there's a hierarchy in the system, in the prison system, she will follow it to the letter if it means that she can escape, and also points out that she's going to name her stand Stone Free to demonstrate the fact that she wants to be free of this ocean of stones. At which point she once again delivers another pummeling to Gwess, and again insists that Gwess shrink her down so that she can get out of the gunpoint. And sure enough, the guard arrives, doesn't see Jolyne. Another guard asks him if he made a mistake or not, which of course they're very visibly confused as to how that happened. And we also find out that Jolyne has used her stand to cover up the camera so that nobody can actually see what happened. But of course, now having her pendant, and Gwess being on the top bunk nursing her wounds because she just got her ass kicked. Then proceeds to start thinking about why her father would have had it, but also is wondering how Gwess actually got it, and Gwess, this is a little bit out of order, but Gwess proceeds to explain that she actually got it from what is it? She actually got it from. And of course, this is a little bit out of order, but Jolyne is now wondering where exactly it is Gwess got her pendant. And Gwess explains that she got it from Hermes, which causes her to wonder how Hermes got it as well. But yeah, this as I said, I watched this episode like a week ago or so, about 2-3 weeks ago, twice. So, but yeah, this is like because I've been trying to fit it into the schedule, and I finally did. But it's a fun episode. I very much enjoy it because it is like this is how the series kind of goes. Like, every episode follows a different protagonist who has to learn all the rules over again. And what's interesting is that Jolyne, because she doesn't have anybody to teach her, because she doesn't have anybody to teach her for these things, because she's alone in the prison essentially. Which means, in order, she has to learn everything herself about range, about how stands work, all these things, as opposed to usual previous series where somebody more experienced is able to come along and explain it to them. So Jolyne is very much having to figure this out as she goes. But yeah, it is a fun episode, and I do highly enjoy it. It is, and of course we'll be officially continuing it next time because we've got a ways to go, and I'm a little behind on episodes. I want to kind of continue this series, but yeah, in any case, that is going to do it for this review. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It helps to fund future projects. It also helps me get closer to being full-time. So I would appreciate it if you were to go and do that. I would highly appreciate that. Go and check out my Twitter, my Twitch. We stream Saturdays and Sundays. Please go check that out. I would appreciate that. Go and check out my Discord where we hang out sometimes. We also do movies sometimes, so please go check that out. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this video. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both those videos out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!